Time to whip out the beast. Got the Rhino 4155 on the back of the 7600. We are going down to Travis's pasture. We're gonna trim down some of the weeds out there. Now down here, I'm probably not going to drop the mower down because of the numerous rocks that are down there. I'm not really, I know this thing can take on a rock, but I'm just a little bit concerned about it taking on that many rocks. So I'm gonna leave it up. We're just kind of gonna be doing some trimming down there because I know Travis doesn't like to look at tall weeds all winter, and he's like, go down there and cut these because he doesn't like to look at them. So I'm gonna take this down there and cut what you can see from the house or anything that is really just stands out. So let's get rolling. So I just got here, and here's the pasture that I'm going to be trying to cut. Those are the weeds up there in particular that I'm going to try to knock down. We have already cut down this pasture once this year, at least once. However, with this new Rhino mower, it is a lot easier to come back to the pastures and manage them. So we're trying to keep the weeds down in some of the pastures because we've had some pretty terrible weed problems in the past. And with the old 7-foot woods mower that we had, it was hard to just stay ahead of all of the weeds. But luckily, with the Rhino 4155, it's a lot easier to come back and recut them because it really doesn't take much of a time commitment anymore to do so. I mean, 7 foot to 15 foot, we're at least saving, like doing the job twice as fast. So I'm gonna hop out and get through this fence. I know there are cattle out in this pasture, but I don't see them right now, so hopefully I can get by without having to close the gate behind me. There is one pasture in particular that I want to do. I think the Klein pasture out of my place, I really want to take the Rhino mower to, as well as another mower if I can get one lined up, which we might be seeing from Rhino. Just a little heads up. But yeah, I think if we get a smaller mower, it'll make it a lot easier to get into some of the tighter spaces. This one is nice, but I'm not a huge fan of backing it into the brush where I can't see. It takes on the job really good, but I just kind of have some reservations about it. I'd like to put in a single mower, a single spindle mower, and I'd rather shove that back into the weeds than a batwing mower. So, all right, let's get started. So I just finished knocking down a bulk of the weeds that I wanted to cut up on top of the hill. The grass doesn't grow very well there because over the past few years we used to feed cattle up there with a bale feeder. So the grass hasn't really gotten its foot in the door and the weeds have a tendency to take over. So a few of the weeds that are pretty prominent down at Travis's place in the pasture are ones such as these. This, many of you may be familiar with, is velvet leaf. They call it velvet leaf because it is just that. If you feel the leaves, they have a very velvety feel to them. They're very soft, but these can be a problem in fields. They actually are a pretty big problem in some areas. So down here, they are pretty common. A large amount of the plants that I just demolished up there were gypsum weed. Ah yes, Jimson weed. So the story behind Jimson weed is that when some of the first settlers came to America, and some of the first settlers in Jamestown had actually gotten to know this plant, they had eaten, I believe, some of the seeds. So the seeds are located in these pods. These pods have little spikes on them. They are fairly sharp. I wouldn't want to just grab onto these, but they aren't too terribly. It's not like I'm going to stab myself with them and then they're going to get stuck in my hand. They're just very pointy. So the seeds are in here. As the plant dries out, those pods will break open, the seeds will come out. I guess some of the settlers from Jamestown had tried some Jimson weed seeds, and they then went crazy and died several days later. So one way you can tell Jimson weed, not only from the pods that are on them, they are a very unique pod, but also the flowers on them are shaped kind of like a trumpet bell. And I believe that's actually one of the other common names for this is trumpeters something or other. I can't remember. I read the story up on this plant a long time ago, but they are pretty invasive, I guess. They will grow just about under any conditions. I mean, it really, look where this one grew up. In between the cracks of a cement foundation. So, oddly enough, it is one of my favorite plants, and one of my favorite weeds, you could say, just because of the story behind it and the fact that, you know, with the pods, I mean, they are not good to ingest. So, here's another velvet leaf plant. So I'm gonna go around this pasture a little bit more and just kind of knock down some of the smaller weeds out here. I'm really not trying to make it look too pretty. I already took down a large amount of what I had wanted to come down and cut above the hill, up on top of the hill. So I'm gonna hop back in and do some more cutting. I hit a tree stump accidentally over there, so I'm trying to stay away from that area. It takes a lot to keep some of these weeds down. You can cut these pastures multiple times a year. Oh, we just ate a rock. Whoops. But you can cut these pastures multiple times a year, and they'll still, if you cut them even in July, they can still grow back in time to pot out and make their seeds and spread. So it's one of the things that we really want to start keeping more tabs on or pay more attention to, is to keep the weeds down. Try to give the grass more of a chance. So I got that knocked down up there. I would have loved to go up into there more where we had knocked down those trees a couple years ago, but I mean, I just don't have the time for it tonight. Travis asked me to knock down the weeds at the top of the hill, so I did. But I think this is going to be one of the few last times, if not the last time, where we take the mower out and we've done cutting with it. I mean, harvest is coming up soon, so don't really have as much time to go out into the pastures anymore this year. there is a cline pasture that I want to go out and mow. Whether or not I get to it this year or next year, I think it might be a good project for next year because we got a lot of trails and stuff out there that I would like to open up again. But I just need to find the time to do it, and I don't know if I'm going to get it this year. So last night I was contacted by a guy who works at an implement dealer who sells Rhino equipment. And he contacted me and said, I had this guy walk in last week and he said, I want to take a look at the beast. And he's like, what are you talking about? He said, on how farms work, they got one of them Rhino 4155s. I want to see it. And I guess the guy who contacted me already watched the videos. He's just like, he just laughed about it and he just wanted to tell me that a guy came in and said that. I guess the unofficial name for this thing that's going around the block is the Beast. Because I am pretty proud of the things that this thing could take on up there. I mean, I drove right over a stump in between the tractor tires and it went up over the leveling on the front and it went right under the mower. And of course it started grinding and whatever else, so I just shut it off and I backed up and I went. I mean, it was a pretty decent sized stump. Man, I looked under it and there's no damage or anything at all. I mean, this thing, it can really take on a lot. I mean, I don't really have to worry about hitting rocks or anything, even though I don't really like to. I don't really have to worry about the rocks doing any real damage or putting any dings in it. I know that it can take up any of the things that I'll miss. I mean, if it's a rock that I can definitely see, obviously I'm going to avoid it, but in this pasture especially, there's definitely some rocks that I can't see. So yeah, the Beast they call it. I get a kick out of that because in the few videos that we made, and it really is a beast. Would that make me the beauty? Or does that make this thing the beauty and I'm the beast because I still haven't shaved my beard off yet? Oh well.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, beauty and